Good morning, rockers. Today I thought I would show you my how I do it video, or how it was done. I took one of these very cool hard cases, you know, the kind that you would use for, like, say cameras or video cameras. They're absolutely waterproof when they're new, but after you drill a few holes in them, of course you can kiss that goodbye. These cases are really designed to be sort of used on boats and near water. So, you know, they're completely sealed and they're very heavy duty. I think the case itself costs 40 or 50 euros. So it's very good quality, and I used to keep my GoPro cameras in it. To tell you the truth, I didn't like carrying around this case because it was too heavy and too hard. So I ended up just putting my GoPros in pockets of bags and things because they're so small they fit. And then I thought, well, I've had this case for about a year. It's probably about time I did something with it. And I'd had this project in my mind for quite some time that, hey, how come I can't have two delays in the same effect? Funny thing is that since then I've actually bought an effect pedal that has two delays and a reverb. As you can see, the cat likes to get involved. All of these pedals that I've bought here are those very, very inexpensive pedals you can buy online. They're between sort of 20 and 30 bucks. I don't think many of these pedals are more than about $30 or $35. Yeah, so having cats in the studio is never going to help you get your work done. In fact, I could probably blame that cat for some of the mistakes that I made, but I won't do that. As you can see, the idea is pretty straightforward. You use the cover of the pedal to show where you should drill the holes. You mark it out, and drilling the holes is like drilling through butter, because plastic is quite soft anyway. This part you kind of start to realize these smaller pedals, or these nano-pedals as they're called, are probably even too small to be used as foot pedals, because I can imagine after a few beers and you're going to put your foot down on one of these nano pedals, I could see you easily knocking it over or even stepping onto it the wrong way and sort of twisting an ankle. Here's one of the two digital delay pedals that I bought. They were the last pedals I received, because I ordered 3 delay pedals from another company in China and they never arrived. It took like 3 months. I got my money back though. Just stay diligent when you're ordering from foreign countries, because sometimes it could take a long time to arrive. Other times it might never arrive at all. I realized here I'd accidentally forgotten to drill a hole, and now I'd run off and drilled that hole and turn the camera off in the meantime. Here are the inner workings of the delay pedal. It's kind of funny because you notice that as these pedals get cheaper and cheaper, there are less actual working parts inside. The circuit board itself is very, very short, and it's actually more of a sandwich board. There are 2 circuit boards on top of each other with a slight gap in between. Instead of having one long circuit board, they've kind of halved the space by using 2 circuits on top. Almost like, I would call it a sandwich. I don't know if there's a proper name for that kind of layering of circuit boards. All of this finger work is unavoidable, and it's kind of like, it's also the point when you realize with these nano pedals that they must be put together by children or something, or people with extremely small fingers, and you can't separate the pots. Whereas if you had a Boss pedal, you can actually separate the pots and get them further apart and spread it out a bit more, so that you could get man fingers in between these you know, volume and effect knobs. It's not really great to have all of these tiny pedals too, because I guess they're great if they're set and forget. But if you're actually spending time and, well, I am a fan of delay. I love delay. That's why I have 2 of them. I also think delaying your delay is awesome. And then I also think that having your reverb at the very, very end of your chain is the wise thing to do. If you could delay your reverb after you've delayed something else, I think that's also pretty fun. I installed this on-off switch here, which I did not realize, and you can see I've marked everything inside the box, so I won't lose track of what pedals I'm looking at and what I'm wiring into what. It doesn't matter what it looks like on the inside of the box because you won't see it anyway. Yeah, the on-off switch is actually just a power switch. It doesn't do anything, it's just kind of there to look pretty. You know, power switches don't really need to have lights on them. All the pedals have their own lights on them anyway. So it's just one extra light. Here I'm putting in the power. One power in. That's my triumph. I'm going to have 5 pedals running off of one power in. And as you know, with almost all of these pedals have the center point is negative. The outer ring is positive. Keep that in mind when you're wiring these pedals, because if you keep thinking that the center is positive, you're going to keep wondering why your pedals aren't firing up and why you're not getting power to all of your different units. I'm pretty happy because at the end of the project, all of my pedals lit up, and all of the pedals use one 9-volt power supply, which is recommended for use with pedals anyway. It's a standard pedal power supply, and by using one power supply instead of 5 separate ones, I'm also saving power. Some people said that I might get noise problems. That is yet to be seen, because everything is still ground to itself. Each unit is ground to each other unit. If necessary, I can put a ground loop isolator inside, and what that would do is it's just a magnet, basically, that the signal goes through a magnet and it sucks out the sort of hiss and hum that you could get from a pedal. What I didn't have washers that were big enough. I actually drilled these holes without even thinking about how big the holes needed to be, because these were going to be for the headphone jacks or for the guitar jacks. And somehow in my fantasy world, guitar jack holes were enormous. And I drilled these 2 holes without consulting the proper size and ended up with these gaping holes on the back of my unit. So I went into the garage and found some of my old Hungarian coins. And because I'm in Austria at the moment, I had some Hungarian coins left over from my time in Hungary. I hope you can see that. It says, where does it say? Magyar Nép Köztársaság. And it's 2 forint. It's actually made of solid brass, so it's actually quite a soft coin. It's not too hard to drill through. It's about as soft as copper. Brass is a pretty soft material. It's certainly not lead or aluminium, but it's not as hard as a normal coin. Coins are almost impossible to drill through. I mean, a real coin that's an alloy of different metals, a 20-cent piece from Australia, I mean, that's pretty hard. Alright, here's the other delay. I have 2 of these, and they're very straightforward. All it is just like a level, how long it delays for, and the length of the delay. Look at that. On-off switch, in-out plugs, and a sandwiched circuit board with the hardware that you need. Very, very little inside these nano pedals. I'm not saying that there was a lot inside the old 80s guitar pedals. It's just that now with the nano pedals, it's kind of revealed how little you need to make a sound. I guess the important thing is not to make a shitty sound. So you still need quality components. And I haven't tested it fully yet. I have fully tested the electronics. and electronically it works, but I haven't tested the sonics, so sonically I'm not sure what it sounds like yet. Alright, I actually started off, believe it or not, with oh no, I didn't start off with, for some reason I've started off with the reverb, which is the very last pedal, and then I put in the 2 delays, and now it's time to put in a distortion. The distortion actually is going to be the very first pedal that goes out of the signal generator into distortion. From distortion, it's going to go into an octave pedal, which is going to give it a pitch shift up or down an octave, which would be pretty fun with a signal generator. The distortion is just to give it a dirty sound instead of giving it a clean sine wave sound. And distortion will give it a bit of a sound of a lo-fi effect. Of course, you don't have to use distortion, but if you like lo-fi like I do, then distortion is great. Roll off the tops so it doesn't sound too ear splitting. Distortion for me sounds nicer when it's a grumble rather than a hiss. Of course, you do it how you like it. But that's why I like to have distortion as an option on the pedal. And anyway, I had a distortion pedal sort of sitting in the studio not being used, and I figured this would be a good project for it. This distortion pedal too is another one of these sandwich pedals. It has 2 circuit boards, one on top of the other. I guess they have different functions. I'm trying to squeeze in my octave pedal, but I think I've realized now that when I heated up the surface with a heat gun, some of the holes kind of swole up a little bit and I couldn't fit everything together. I guess if I can fit on all of the screws, then there's not too much to worry about. The important thing is that the pedals have to support their own weight, meaning that, you know, if you're pressing down on it, I would never step on this box. This is not a box to be put on the ground and stepped on. But if you were hitting it pretty hard with your thumb, or even punching it with your fist, I don't know, during a show, it should be able to support that kind of pressure. And I don't mean stepping directly on the levels and the knobs. I mean just the on-off switches. They're all in a row there, so they're easily accessed. Only the delay pedal, only the distortion pedal is in a separate position, because the distortion is going to be kind of like not that necessary to play with. I think it'll be something that you kind of sweep in and out. It's at the very top of the box, so to speak. I'm putting the distortion in now. I guess it's going to fit in alright. It looks like it fits. Yeah, I just had to be creative with the way that I assembled all of these pedals. Because as you can see, there's already 1, 2, 3, 4 pedals at the top. Although that's the bottom for me. And here at the top of the box, that solo pedal that's sitting alone, that's the distortion. This mess is a signal generator I bought from Australia for $40. The signal generator, there was nothing wrong with it. It came in a little plastic box. But to be completely honest, it was the reason that I wanted to make the box in the first place. I wanted to have a signal generator that had 2 delays and a reverb. That wasn't too much to ask. A signal generator now will go through distortion, octave pedal, 2 delays and a reverb, and all of that is actually mono. And I've designed the box so it also has a in plug in, so it has 1 mono out, and also it has a signal in possibility. So if you're not using the signal generator, you still have the option of being able to, you know, put your guitar or a CD player or some other effect through the box and use the distortion, the octave, the 2 delays, and the reverb. Now I'm trying to install all the smaller components that make up this signal generator. The thing I don't like about it is that all of the parts are really flippy floppy and all separate from each other. In a way that's good, because I can put the buttons wherever I want them, but one of the wires came off the power supply and I wasn't sure exactly where to stick the wire again. But still, at this point I'm just putting things together. Hope you can see I've got the on-off switch. It's not the switch itself, it's the lamp that shows that the unit has power to it. And that unit alone does not use the 9-volt power supply. That unit has 2 AA or AAA batteries. The smaller batteries, I guess they're AAA batteries. And this is the part that I was kind of like hesitant about. You can see it there in the left hand side. It's just a mess of knobs and sort of wires. Luckily, it's the last thing to do. Inside the box, the power supply, I'm just going to take out the... Oh no, I'm going to tighten, sorry, the power input, so everything's nice and solid. So far it looks good. I'm pretty confident about the work that I put in so far. It's been pretty straightforward. Now each knob and button can go in whichever hole it fits in. I did measure this out though. I measured out all of those other holes on the face. I just didn't measure out the holes on the back. So on the face of the whole device, I've just held up the cover of the pedal and drawn the circles in where I can drill the holes through. The important thing is you do everything backwards. Again, I'm using Hungarian coins as washers. This filler is actually a smaller denomination than a forint, and a forint is already a pretty small denomination. But the filler is 100% aluminium, but it's a very pretty looking aluminium coin. And as you can see there, it makes a giant makes quite an impression for how big that washer is. And considering it's a filler, it looks quite pretty. I mean, it looks nice on there. And because the box itself is, you know, that military green, because the box looks like it's from the army, it almost looks like a kind of a detonation box for explosives or some kind of detonation device. And some people already commented online that maybe I couldn't get this through the airport. Maybe customs wouldn't let it through. I think customs are more concerned about liquids and chemicals. If they can open the box and look in it, and there's nothing in it besides wires and circuits, that isn't a bomb. A bomb would be something that has a fuel of some kind that would explode, and I guess I should stop talking about that, because that is not a topic that I think we should go too far into. But keep in mind, you should be smart when you're traveling with your DJ gear and allow a box like this to still be openable. I have 2 loops on the side where I could put padlocks on. Otherwise, I have these 2 sort of levers that clip it closed, and I'm quite comfortable when they are closed that they're going to stay closed. And then if I can open it for customs, then I've got nothing to worry about. I mean, look at the size of that box. You could put, I'm not even going to say it, you could fit a lot of contraband into a box like that. So as long as you can open it and show it to the guy at the airport, you've got nothing to worry about. Just tell them what it is. It's a sound effect box that you made yourself, and you're very, very proud, because it took quite a few hours to put it together. All of this, you're watching me do it in 4 times the speed that I'm actually doing it. I hate using pliers with a needle nose in a project like that. Sometimes it can like scoot off and scratch the surface. When you scratch the plastic, it's a lot harder to fix. Scratching the metal's not a big deal, but I don't like to scratch the coin either. I prefer to have a flat-ended pair of pliers. But if you're very, very careful and you don't overdo it, I mean, there's no need to worry too much. Just take your time. I mean, look how many knobs and buttons there are on that thing. I didn't even count them all. Alright, so I had to put another washer on there because that coin was kind of sliding around. The hole in the middle of the coin was designed big enough for a headphone jack to go in. But at this point, it's just for the toggle switch for the signal generator. I love toggle switches. In the world of dub sirens, the toggle switch is called the lockdown switch. So once you put it down and the signal keeps going, you can start manipulating the siren signal. Alright, I'm trying to do some other creative things here. They're not all golden. See, the button that the signal generator came with was quite a cheap ass one. I mean, I've bought these momentary switches before, and really I think you get a pack of 5 for $5 or something like that. So I didn't really like the momentary switch that came with the signal generator. So here I am trying to sort out that signal generator so that I can change the momentary switch for something a little bit more. Actually, at this point I'm putting the power supply together. This is where I realized the power supply has been disconnected, and although the red wire is going to a particular part, I just don't know what's happening with the other part. So I'm not sure if I've put the negative wire in the correct place. Otherwise, I'm about to change the toggle. Oh no, I'm about to change the momentary switch. And for some reason I'm going to play music all over this video now. In ×4. Alright, I'm just showing you in detail how I'm trying to sort things out. In order for these pedals to work properly, some of them, and you know this if you're a guitar player, they need to have a jack inside the... there needs to be a metal pole inside the hole, or the pedal will not work. So in some of these cases I've actually hardwired the pedal, and because there's nothing inside the hole, I've cut the end off a guitar jack, as you can see here, just chopping the tip off. And then, yeah, sometimes it's more successful than others. And then I jam that into the hole where I've had it hardwired onto the circuit board. So as long as everything is connecting properly inside, it doesn't matter whether or not I've actually got a signal going in from that steel pole on the side. The important thing is that I've got a signal going in from the front where I can easily access that with a soldering iron and some wires, which is much easier because look how close everything is together. I mean, this is where I realize, oh shit, look, all my pedals are so close together that I actually can't get in there to put the signal through. How do I put a wire into one end and out the other end and still get that signal through? Everything's so close together. So you have to chop off a guitar plug, and that end bit is going to fit into that hole and not touch the pedal that's next to it, because nothing can touch anything else. No metal can touch any other metal it's not supposed to be touching. Alright, what's happening? The good part, in a way, is those ultra cheap ass pedals, all of the in and out plugs are hanging loose. Therefore, I can just easily use those patch cables and plug them in one by one. But with those hardwired ones, like you probably used to, with companies like Boss, especially Boss pedals, and pedals like Behringer pedals, they're hardwired into the circuit. Therefore, you have to kind of solder onto the top of the jack. And you still need to put something into that hole so it conducts that circuit the way that it should, but it doesn't touch the pedal that it's next to. This was the part where it got a little bit confusing and I started thinking, oh, I hope I haven't bitten too much off. The thing is, the pedals look great one by one, side by side in there. And as you can see here, I'm actually gluing down the distortion pedal because the top half of the pedal didn't have screws to hold it out into the surface of the box. It's very important that every pedal, can support its own weight. You don't want to be pushing onto some knobs and they fall into the box. So just for that one pedal, the distortion pedal, I added extra hot wax to make sure that it stayed in place. All the other ones, it's not wax, sorry, it's hot glue. So the distortion is held down with hot glue. The other ones are just held onto the face by their own screws, as you can see there. I'll tell you, my fingers were kind of tingly that night. Here I've actually replaced the momentary switch already. It's that big black button there near my hand. I prefer that momentary switch because you could bump it on the side and you're never going to damage it. It's designed in such a way that it's very user-friendly, even in the dark or even after a few beers. I don't like those little fiddly switches because if you're using it in the dark after a few beers, you might accidentally knock it on the side or damage the top of it, or the top might come off. Alright, so I'm just reinforcing the distortion pedal so that it's super durable. The idea is once I close the box, I don't want to open it again. Maybe just to change the batteries for the signal generator. But once this box gets closed, it's going to stay closed. Alright, now's the time that I can actually start plugging these things in. It's almost ready. But this is not the final stage. The final stage is electricity. This stage, you just got to make sure that you know what is in and what is out. What comes in goes out the back and into the next. Out of one and into the next. Out of one and into the next. I know it sounds very straightforward, but if you put an out to an out or an in to an in, you are never going to get any results from this box, and you're going to be ashamed of yourself, and you're going to have a box that's worth a couple $100 that you can't do anything with just because you couldn't figure out the basic in and out. That's the other thing too. The pedal power, the inside pin is negative, the outside ring is positive. With your sound, with your pedals, with your audio, it's the exact opposite. The tip of your audio patch cable is going to be the active part of it. It's going to be the plus part of your signal. The ring part, the outside part of your patch cable, that will be the negative part of your signal, and therefore it's the exact opposite of the power configuration for the pedals. Keep that in mind, because if you're not thinking clearly, or you're taking too many breaks to blaze the chalice, you might come back and realize that you've made some mistakes. I think the important thing really is to do it systematically, one thing at a time. Do not rush and do not overdo it. You know, you can't get this done before a dentist appointment or something. You really need time set aside, spend a whole day getting your project happening. I mean, this video is about 40 minutes long, but to tell you the truth, this is like one whole day of cutting and twisting and soldering, and to tell you the truth, I felt very, very good about it at the end. I also zip tied the patch cables together, so I don't have too many problems with them bouncing around or moving if I have to take this guitar unit somewhere and use it somewhere. I don't want things flopping around and making noise in there, because they could dislocate or disconnect a wire, and then I would never know which part of it was damaged. Alright, so I can clip it shut now, and basically it looks how it should look. I mean, without the buttons, of course. Let's see what it looks like. I had this plan to make it look like a kind of a dub siren, and then dub sirens usually have reggae color buttons. I don't know if you've been paying attention to that kind of thing, but dub sirens are just signal generators or oscillators that have low frequency oscillators, and sometimes they have inbuilt delays and different kinds of wave generators. They're just made for sound effects, and people use them for reggae music, and most of all dub. Heavy dub music, even dubstep, and even drum and bass you could use it. The idea is that you use a unit like this live. The reason I'm putting reggae color, I ordered these knobs on eBay. I like them much better than the knobs that came with the pedals, because of course everything that comes with a cheap ass pedal is cheap ass. So I spent a little bit of money, and I got these very nice, sort of stout and thick, very solid knobs that you have screws on the back, and you can screw them onto the existing shaft. And then once you've done that, you've just changed the knobs, and you've got something very colorful and still practical. You know, it does the same job as the knobs it came with. But the knobs that it came with were such rubbish that for some of those pedals I literally threw the knobs in the rubbish bin. You know, they were even like half see-through or very brittle. You know, they would crack if you put pressure on them. Certainly poor quality knobs. I like saving knobs from other machines, so you can use retro old-fashioned things and put them onto your new machines. And of course, when it comes to a recycled project like this project, I think it's very cool. I think it's exactly the kind of thing that you would want to be doing if you had a rainy Saturday and a bunch of guitar pedals that you weren't using anymore. Put them into some sort of sequence, a logical sequence, and I like to think that reverb last is very, very logical. You do it how you want. But this is the way that I set it up. My signal generator is the thing that you see on the very left hand side. The on-off switch, or the momentary button, is the black button that you see in that left corner of the box. Above that is the toggle, which has the lockdown switch, and that's also quite an interesting one to use. Otherwise, the little dot at the top of that line is the lamp that should show me that the power is active from the batteries. Alright, installing these tiny little buttons is a pain in the ass, it's true. But the good thing is that once you've installed them, you only have to install them once. You're not going to be taking these pedals out again. You're not going to be reinstalling all of this stuff. You're going to set it up once, and once you've set it up, well, there's no need to take it apart again unless you need to repair it. I'm not sure if there's any sort of rhyme or reason to the way I put these things together, but I certainly like that with my octave pedal, which has the red knobs, and the distortion pedal, which has the red knobs, the main volume part of that knob I've replaced with a giant knob from an old amplifier, and that looks hilarious. So the volume on the delay, the volume on the distortion and the volume on the octave have very, very big knobs, and also the volume on the signal generator. I've got these other two cute little knobs that I can just squeeze on the end there, and I've got one more yellow knob to stick on, and it's practically finished. I'm gonna have a quick look at it, you know, sort of. Yep, there we go. I've stuck it all together. I'm really gonna have to test this thing and see whether it works or not. So here I've found a oh, that's pretty awesome. Okay, well that makes me happy. Just seeing that my pedals all work with that one power in makes me pretty impressed with myself. I don't say that I'm a great anything. I'm saying anyone could do this. All it is joining a bunch of pedals together inside a box. Wow, great. Okay, let's have a look. Let's see. Okay, distortion works. Octave, check. First delay, check. Second delay, check. And reverb, check. That button in the top right corner in the end doesn't do anything whatsoever because I bypassed it. It turns out that that switch only lights up if it has 240 volts of power, and I am not going to put 240 volts of power in this box when it only needs 9 volts of power. All of these pedals are running off one circuit. I'm happy. And have a look inside. This is how simple it is. I mean, it might not look that simple, but it's literally, you can see each section there is a pedal. The thing on the very left is trickier. Here is the one in, one out. So one is all of the effects out, one is the effects in. The other one is the power in. All of the pedals are there. And when you clip it closed, it should be absolutely secure. And look at that, you can take it with you shopping. You could, you know, go down the mall with it. And you could try something like this yourself. This is John Green, the Global Reverb Dub Music Collective. Leave a comment below. Hit like and subscribe if you like the channel. We'll get back to you next week. Big ups.